In this video, I'm covering how to stabilize the vertical edges of scale mail. So here I have some scale mail without any edges stabilized, so notice how the scales flare out and are loose on the sides. We don't want this. To start out, I'm going to add a closed ring to the lateral edge of all of the scales that I want to stabilize. Now notice, these two rings are the rings that I'm now going to attach another open ring through. So I'm going to connect the ring that I just added to the ring that then connects the two scales right below that scale. Repeat this process all down the edge that you are stabilizing. So notice how this is pulling the outside of the edge of the scale in and therefore keeping it from flaring out. From the front view, it's easy to see the difference between the top three scales that are stabilized and the bottom two scales that are not. Alright, today I'm covering how to stabilize the diagonal edges of your scale mail. So notice how floppy the edges are and how they don't want to lay in a uniform direction. Start by adding a closed ring to the outside edge of all of the scales. Each scale should have a total of 4 rings attached. Now it's going to get a little tricky here, stay with me, we're going to make it. Okay, take an open ring and feed it through a total of 3 rings. It's going to go through the empty rings on either side of the scale that you just added, and then the ring that attaches the ring to its diagonal neighbor on the inner side. When you get to the center scale, just attach the 2 empty rings. So just keep on like this, running an open ring through a total of 3 rings. It's honestly easier to see the pattern visually than it is to explain. Here's what it looks like from the back, and here is the front. So notice how the bottom diagonal edges are now stable and all facing the same direction. Alright, here we go, the final segment covering how to stabilize the edges of scale mail. This time I'm covering how to finish the horizontal edges as well as the top. For the bottom horizontal, start by adding a closed empty ring on the outside of all the bottom scales, so all of the bottom rows should now have a total of 4 rings attached. Then connect all the rings that you just added together, both between the scales and connecting the empty rings on either side of each scale. When I tug on the scales, you can see how it helps to keep the rings in line and distribute the tension. Now finishing the top edges is optional, but it does help to stabilize your scales and also adds a bit of a decorative touch. This one is really easy. Just add an open ring through each of the top rings that are already in place, and when I pull it apart you can see the difference. Last but not least, stabilizing the top diagonal edges is also very easy. You're just going to feed an open ring through the rings on the edge that are already in place to keep your scales together. Simple. And there you go, how to stabilize all the various different edges so the scales don't go anywhere.